From ancient times until now, Buddhism has always profoundly emphasized the law of cause and effect. Because every human being existing in this life is living within the continuation of karmic conditions created through countless previous lifetimes. The life we are experiencing today is the accumulated result of our past actions, thoughts, and words. And within Buddhist teachings, this is known as the inheritance of karmic force. Within the wondrous teachings of the Buddha, the meaning of karma carries immeasurable depth. Yet many people in the world mistakenly believe that human beings are born with a fixed destiny that can never be changed. Some believe that those born into wealth are destined to enjoy prosperity forever, while those born into poverty must endlessly endure hardship and suffering throughout their lives. Others think that beauty or ugliness, fortune or misfortune are all predetermined by fate from the beginning and therefore cannot be transformed through personal effort. Yet within Buddhist teachings, there is no concept of an unchanging destiny because all things are explained through the karma created by human beings themselves through body, speech, and mind. For if one believes that everything has already been permanently arranged, then the human spirit will gradually lose its will to rise above suffering and become trapped within hopelessness and resignation. When people believe that life cannot be changed, they easily surrender before adversity and allow karmic forces to carry them endlessly through the ocean of suffering. On the contrary, Buddhism teaches that karma can absolutely be transformed if a person awakens in mindfulness and sincerely strives to purify and correct themselves each day. Every wholesome or unwholesome deed created by human beings in the past or present forms karmic energy. Yet even that karma can still be changed through a compassionate and virtuous heart. If a person once committed many wrongdoings but later feels sincere remorse, vows to transform themselves, and chooses to live more kindly, then harmful karma will gradually begin to dissolve. When consciousness shifts from delusion into awakening, the seeds of goodness quietly begin to grow, guiding the human heart out of the darkness created by negative karma. That is the true meaning of spiritual cultivation, because only through sincere practice can the soul blossom and advance upon the path of enlightenment and liberation. The Buddha's teachings always open a powerful doorway of hope, reminding humanity that anyone can transform their life by planting wholesome causes within the present moment. According to the spirit of cause and effect taught by the Buddha, all living beings exist within the perfectly balanced movement of causes and consequences that never fail or deviate. Everything we are receiving today is the result of seeds planted long ago in the distant past, and is never something that appears merely by accident. Whether one experiences joy or suffering, lives in abundance or hardship, all of it carries deep roots within the karma that person has created through previous actions. Nothing in this life appears without cause, because every circumstance is formed through karmic conditions, and the law of cause and effect created by each individual. Because human beings create different karma, they are born with completely different circumstances, personalities, wisdom, and blessings. Even within the same family, sharing the same bloodline and receiving equal love from their parents, each child still carries a remarkably different destiny. Some are exceptionally intelligent and naturally gifted in learning, while others struggle greatly in life despite growing up beneath the very same roof. Some people prosper easily in business and enjoy a life of abundance, while others continue to face hardship despite putting forth equal effort and determination. Many people use science or genetic inheritance to explain every difference among human beings. Yet reality sometimes extends far beyond those assumptions. There are parents of extraordinary intelligence whose children still grow up slow in understanding and lacking mental sharpness, leaving many unable to explain why. Likewise, there are ordinary parents who give birth to exceptionally talented children whose brilliance amazes and inspires everyone they encounter. If one relies only upon scientific theories for explanation, it is still impossible to fully comprehend the deeper mysteries within human life and all living beings. Yet under the illuminating wisdom of the Buddha's teachings, these mysteries become much clearer because everything originates from the karma and cause and effect of each sentient being. Those who in past lives cultivated wisdom, diligently pursued learning, and lived with clarity of mind, often develop greater intelligence in this present life. There are children who reveal extraordinary abilities from birth, despite never having learned them before. And this is the continuation of wisdom seeds carried across many lifetimes. There are also people who meet for the first time, yet instantly feel deeply familiar with one another, as though they had known each other through countless distant lifetimes. In contrast, some individuals encounter one another for the first time, yet immediately feel discomfort and distance within their hearts, without understanding the reason why. All of those emotions arise from karmic conditions and invisible connections formed between people through previous existences. Those who once shared wholesome affinities together will naturally feel affection, understanding, and closeness when they meet again, even without prior acquaintance in this lifetime. Meanwhile, those who once carried resentment and unresolved conflict toward one another often find it difficult to harmonize when reunited, as uneasiness naturally arises within the heart. This is the wondrous operation of the law of cause and effect that the Buddha revealed, so humanity could understand the true origin of every destined encounter in life. Not only the inner mind, but even the outward appearance of each person differs, because karma creates countless distinctions among human beings throughout the world. Among the millions of people existing upon this earth, no two individuals are completely identical, because every sentient being carries unique karma of their own. Within the Buddhist scriptures, the Buddha once taught that every appearance and circumstance in this world is created by consciousness and karmic force. Just as within the vast ocean there exist countless living creatures with different forms, all are shaped through their own distinct karmic causes. The wholesome and unwholesome karma that human beings create through body, speech, and mind gradually forms corresponding consequences in both the present and the future. Because sentient beings have created vastly different karma throughout immeasurable lifetimes, they are born carrying countless distinctions in destiny and character. Even when living within the same environment, each person's thoughts and inner world remain entirely different, like separate realms existing side by side. Some sit amidst joyful crowds while their hearts remain filled with suffering and anxiety, while others endure adversity yet still preserve peace and serenity within themselves. Even identical twins, whose appearances seem almost exactly alike, still possess unique qualities and differences that can never truly be blended together. Because each person's consciousness and karmic force are inherently different, even their appearance and inner presence naturally carry unique and unmistakable imprints. The Buddha taught that human beings are born into the flowing current of cause and effect, continuously influenced by the powerful karma they themselves have created. When awareness has not yet fully awakened, people are often led by karma and cannot completely master their own thoughts, emotions, and actions. Many who study the Buddha's teachings clearly understand that anger is harmful. Yet, when facing adversity, they still cannot restrain the flames of resentment within themselves. This is much like a sick person who knows unhealthy habits will cause harm, yet greed and long-standing tendencies still make it difficult to stop. There are people who fully understand that alcohol and cigarettes damage the body. Yet, because karmic habits run so deeply, they remain unable to let go. That is the moment when karmic force is controlling human beings, turning them into servants of their own habits, cravings, and endless desires. The Buddha called this condition being ruled by karma. When people lose the ability to govern their own body and mind and allow afflictions to lead the way. Yet, the teachings of the Tathagata do not stop merely at revealing suffering, but also open a path for all beings to transform the karma within themselves. True spiritual practice is not an escape from life, but the gradual transformation of harmful habits while nurturing wholesome qualities within every passing moment. The Buddha taught that nothing exists forever without change, because all phenomena in this world are impermanent and continuously transforming without pause. Although karma is powerful, it is still created by human beings themselves, and therefore human beings also possess the ability to transform that karma completely. Without understanding this profound truth, many people become trapped in despair and self-doubt, believing their karma is too heavy for life ever to change. Yet beneath the compassionate wisdom and radiant light of the Buddha, all sentient beings are given the opportunity to transform themselves and rise beyond the darkness of ignorance. The Buddha himself stands as the greatest example for humanity, because before enlightenment, he too was once an ordinary human being like everyone else. He did not descend from heavenly realms with supernatural powers, but was born into this world, carrying the ordinary form and condition of a human being. If the Buddha had originally been a divine being beyond humanity, then people would never dare believe that they themselves could also attain enlightenment through practice. For this reason, the Buddha appeared in the world as an ordinary person, to show all beings that anyone can achieve awakening if they sincerely cultivate themselves. Before attaining enlightenment, he too grew up within a family, experienced the joys and sorrows of human life, and faced the same uncertainties as countless others. The prince of long ago was born amidst royal luxury, raised in complete abundance, and surrounded by every pleasure that worldly people endlessly dream of possessing. Yet even while living within the highest levels of wealth and comfort, deep within his heart there remained an unspoken unease that could not be ignored. Until one day, while passing through the city gates, he witnessed with his own eyes the realities of old age, sickness, and death surrounding fragile human existence. Those images rang through his consciousness like a great awakening bell, helping him realize that no one can escape the universal law of birth, aging, illness, and death. While his mind remained filled with contemplation, he encountered a wandering monk whose peaceful and liberated presence moved calmly through the ever-changing suffering of the world. The image of that serene monk awakened within him a profound longing to seek truth and discover a path that could free humanity from birth, aging, sickness, and death. Once he deeply understood that the cycle of life and death must have hidden causes behind it, he resolved to abandon the royal palace and search for the way. He realized that if birth and death had causes, then there must also exist a path capable of ending the endless suffering of cyclic existence. That spirit resembled the determination of wise sages and devoted scientists who tirelessly search for the roots of illness in order to save humanity from suffering. Only when the causes of disease are discovered can healing truly begin. And in the same way, the Buddha searched for the root causes of suffering and rebirth. After a long journey of study, discipline, and ascetic practice, he finally sat beneath the Bodhi tree with the vow to uncover the ultimate truth for all beings. Through many days and nights of deep meditation, he attained complete enlightenment and clearly perceived the source of the endless cycle of birth and death within sentient beings. He realized that the 12 dependent originations are the chain of conditions causing human beings to endlessly drift within the ocean of samsaric suffering. As long as ignorance and craving continue to exist, the cycle of birth and death will continue endlessly. But once they are uprooted, liberation and peace can finally be attained. From that moment, the Buddha entered nirvana and opened the path of awakening that would guide countless beings beyond suffering within this ever-changing world. After attaining enlightenment, he shared the wondrous Dharma with great disciples such as Shariputra and Madhyayana. Through diligent and unwavering practice, those disciples attained the state of arhatship and completely ended the roots of samsaric birth and death accumulated through countless lifetimes. This clearly shows that karmic force is not something eternally fixed, but can absolutely be transformed when human beings practice the path sincerely and correctly. Ordinary people often witness old age, sickness, and death, and simply accept them as normal parts of life, rarely questioning the deeper causes hidden behind them. Most people assume that everyone born into this world must eventually die, and so they drift along with life without seeking a path beyond suffering. Only the world-honored one refused to surrender in such a way, for he was determined to search to the very root of existence and resolve the cycle of rebirth completely. Because of that immense aspiration and unshakable spirit, he transcended every limitation and attained the highest and most complete enlightenment. This story helps us understand that the Buddha, too, was once an ordinary human being, like all sentient beings currently living within this world. If one human being could transform himself and attain enlightenment, then every person also possesses the ability to walk upon that same path. The true meaning of the title Buddha is the fully awakened one, and we ourselves also carry the potential to reach that state of profound awakening. Enlightenment is not something distant or unreachable, but exists quietly within the consciousness of every person who knows how to turn inward and illuminate their own heart. For all sentient beings already carry the seed of awakening within themselves, yet ignorance still covers that inner light and prevents them from recognizing their true nature. Many people, when retelling the history of the Buddha, often use words that are not entirely accurate and unintentionally distort the profound meaning of the Dharma. Some say that the Buddha had parents, a wife, and children, and lived the life of royalty just like ordinary people in the world. But in truth, before enlightenment, he was only a prince, carrying the condition of an ordinary human being, and had not yet become the Buddha, as many imagine. The title Buddha only appeared after he attained complete enlightenment beneath the Bodhi tree and fully realized the wondrous truth of existence and the universe. This reveals that even an ordinary human being, if practicing the true Dharma sincerely, can still attain the same perfect wisdom realized by the Buddhas. Therefore, all sentient beings possess the ability to transform their karma and should never feel inferior or ashamed because of mistakes committed in the past. Many people believe their sins are too heavy and therefore think they are incapable of spiritual cultivation or deep inner transformation. Yet the Buddha appeared in this world precisely to reveal a path through which all beings can correct themselves and transcend delusion and suffering. Spiritual practice is not something mysterious or distant, but simply the process of transforming what is harmful into goodness and changing an unwholesome mind into purity and compassion. Within the Buddha's teachings, there is a story about a notorious murderer named Angulimala, whose name alone filled people with terror. Because he had fallen deeply into delusion and false teachings, he believed that killing many people would grant him secret powers and hidden spiritual abilities. He was manipulated into believing that he must collect the fingers of his victims and string them into a necklace around his neck to fulfill his desire. From that moment onward, he became a source of horror throughout the land, slaughtering countless innocent people and plunging society into overwhelming fear. When the number of fingers he sought was nearly complete, the entire kingdom fell into panic, and no one dared step outside for fear of encountering him. The king's soldiers were ordered to capture and punish him before more disasters could descend upon innocent people across the land. His mother, upon hearing the terrible news, was heartbroken and rushed to find her son in hopes of persuading him to stop before it became too late. Yet because his mind was consumed by delusion and obscured by evil karma, he even intended to harm his own mother in order to complete his dreadful mission. The Buddha, with infinite compassion, perceived that this man still possessed wholesome karmic roots and therefore resolved to save him before he committed an even greater crime. The Buddha did not wish for him to create the gravest karma of murdering his own mother, so he deliberately appeared before the violent killer himself. The moment Angulimala saw the Buddha walking calmly ahead, he immediately grabbed his weapon and chased after him. Yet strangely, he could never catch up. Filled with anger and confusion, he shouted loudly at the wandering monk, demanding that he stop and face him directly. At that moment, the Buddha gently replied that he himself had already stopped long ago, while only Angulimala still refused to stop running within ignorance and evil deeds. Hearing those words, the murderer was utterly shocked, because before his eyes, the monk still appeared to be walking, while claiming he had already stopped. The Buddha then explained that he had long ago stopped all greed, hatred, and violence, while Angulimala continued endlessly, chasing after wild desires and delusion. Those words flashed through the darkness of ignorance like a bolt of lightning, gradually awakening the consciousness of the murderer after years of wandering in confusion. Afterward, the Buddha continued teaching him about karma, cause and effect, and the true path leading toward liberation from suffering. Through sincere repentance and diligent cultivation, the man who once committed countless terrible crimes eventually attained arhatship and liberation from the cycle of birth and death. That story reveals that no matter how deeply a person has fallen into wrongdoing, transformation is still possible if they sincerely turn back toward goodness. Within the Buddha's Sangha, there were also many people carrying complicated karmic burdens, yet after encountering the true Dharma, they completely transformed their lives. There was once a woman renowned for extraordinary beauty who had created many karmic entanglements and lived amidst the gossip and temptations of worldly life. Through the karmic opportunity of meeting the Venerable Madhgalyayana and receiving his compassionate guidance, she gradually awakened and turned her heart toward goodness. One day, while the Venerable monk was walking for alms through a certain garden, he encountered a middle-aged woman of remarkably seductive beauty, waiting there intentionally. She attempted to use sweet words and enchanting glances to flirt with him, and disturb the purity and serenity of the practicing monk. Yet with unsurpassed wisdom and spiritual insight, Venerable Maudgalyayana instantly understood that she was a courtesan, attempting to use beauty to seduce and confuse him. As the venerable monk used wisdom and spiritual vision to contemplate deeply into her inner being, he perceived that beneath her radiant beauty was a soul burdened with endless pain and impurity. With great compassion, he looked at the woman gently and said that the most tragic thing was not one's outward condition, but the delusion imprisoning the mind within. No matter how beautiful the outer appearance may seem, or how adorned it is with dazzling jewels and ornaments, if the heart remains full of craving and affliction, suffering still continues to cover everything. He explained that the human body itself is impermanent and impure, and if one endlessly chases after desire, one will sink deeper and deeper into the ocean of suffering without escape. Those truthful and compassionate words shook the woman profoundly, as though someone had suddenly illuminated the deepest secrets she had hidden within her heart for so long. Tears quietly began falling from her eyes, because for the very first time in her life, she felt that someone truly understood the silent suffering buried within her soul. The woman choked with emotion as she confessed to the venerable monk that he had indeed seen through all the sins and hidden darkness she had concealed from the world. She admitted that although she had long heard of his reputation as the disciple foremost in spiritual powers, she had never believed there could exist someone untouched by physical beauty. Now, after witnessing with her own eyes the purity and wisdom of the monk standing before her, she finally understood that physical beauty could never shake one who had attained awakening. Tormented by deep inner pain, she confessed that her life carried far too many sins, and although she had often wished to become better, despair prevented her from even beginning. She believed that her life had become too stained and corrupted by mistakes, and that no matter how hard she tried, she could never truly be redeemed or purified. The more she reflected upon the actions of her past, the more terrified she became of the painful karmic consequences awaiting her in the future. Venerable Maudgalyayana, with boundless compassion, gently comforted her and advised her not to torture herself with such hopeless despair. He taught that no matter how deep one's sins may be, if a person sincerely repents and firmly resolves to change, karmic burdens can still be transformed. He compared the human mind to a garment covered in dust and stains, explaining that if one patiently washes it, it can eventually become pure and spotless once again. Although the body may become impure, it can still be cleansed with water, and likewise the soul can also be purified from afflictions through reliance upon the true Dharma. The venerable monk continued teaching that just as the vast ocean can receive and cleanse muddy waters flowing from countless rivers, the Buddha's teachings possess the same transformative power. Even someone who is sunk deeply into wrongdoing and desire can still regain purity and clarity of heart if they awaken and sincerely turn back toward goodness. Those compassionate teachings became like a warm flame, comforting the despairing heart of the woman, gradually restoring her faith in herself once again. The venerable monk helped her understand that no human being is born to remain forever buried in sin if they genuinely seek transformation through sincere practice. The woman, deeply moved yet trembling with emotion, confessed that the sins of her past were so terrible that she could hardly bring herself to speak them aloud. She painfully admitted that if she revealed everything, perhaps people would recoil in horror and turn away, unwilling ever to look upon her face again. The venerable monk listened calmly, with eyes full of compassion, and gently encouraged her to speak openly, so the suffering hidden within her heart could finally be released. The woman tearfully explained that she had once been the daughter of a wealthy and highly respected family, living within a prosperous and crowded city. While she was still very young, her parents arranged a marriage for her, hoping their daughter would live a peaceful and happy life. Yet before that happiness could last very long, her father passed away. And from that moment, a painful tragedy slowly began unfolding within the family. She accidentally discovered that her own mother was secretly involved with her husband, a cruel truth that shattered her heart into unbearable sorrow. At that time, she had only recently given birth to a baby girl. But, overwhelmed by despair, she abandoned everything and left in tears, filled with hatred and grief. Later, she remarried a merchant in another region, hoping she could bury the painful memories of her previous life behind her forever. Yet one day, she discovered that her new husband was secretly supporting another woman far away without her knowledge. Jealousy and the agony of betrayal consumed her heart, driving her to seek out that other woman so she could pour out all the hatred burning inside her. But when confronted with the truth, she stood frozen in shock upon realizing that the woman was none other than the daughter she herself had abandoned long ago. At that moment, she burst into uncontrollable tears, feeling as though her heart were being torn apart by the tragic karmic entanglements created through countless causes and conditions. The venerable monk quietly comforted her and explained that none of those painful events were accidental, but all were the unfolding results of karma and rebirth across many lifetimes. Everything she was suffering in the present was the consequence of karmic seeds planted long ago in the distant past, now returning to fruition. Hearing those words, the woman cried out in anguish that life truly seemed like an endless ocean of suffering without escape from painful karmic entanglements. She continued confessing that after enduring layer upon layer of heartbreak, she gradually developed hatred toward life itself and abandoned herself to pleasure and indulgence. From that moment, she entered the life of a courtesan, using her own body as entertainment for others, as a way of taking revenge upon the bitterness of existence. She ignored the broken families and wounded hearts left behind after those fleeting pleasures, because within her own heart there remained only hatred and hopeless despair. Although she wasted enormous wealth on indulgence and luxury, deep within her soul there always remained a cold emptiness that nothing in the world could ever fill. Now, standing before the radiant light of the true Dharma, she finally began to fear the karmic consequences created by her own actions. With trembling emotion, she asked the venerable monk how someone like herself could sincerely repent and escape from the darkness of accumulated sins. Venerable Modgalyayana saw that within her there still remained wholesome seeds not yet extinguished, and so he carefully explained the compassionate law of karma and cause and effect. He taught that every form of suffering arises from karmic causes created in the past through the actions of body, speech, and mind. What she was experiencing in the present was the result of previous karmic conditions. Yet, the most important thing was learning how to transform those causes from this moment onward. If she continued drowning in guilt and hopeless surrender, suffering would endlessly continue without ever reaching an end. After hearing those deeply wise teachings, the woman felt as though she had finally awakened from a long and painful dream of delusion. She decided to follow the venerable monk so she could meet the Buddha and seek refuge beneath the compassionate light of his enlightenment. Through sincere repentance and diligent spiritual cultivation, she eventually attained arhatship and became one of the foremost nuns possessing extraordinary spiritual powers. That story stands as a powerful awakening for all people who feel trapped in despair because of their mistakes and karmic burdens. No matter how many wrongdoings a person may have committed, the seed of enlightenment hidden deep within consciousness has never truly disappeared. For this reason, Buddhism teaches that all sentient beings possess Buddha nature, and therefore all carry the potential to attain enlightenment and liberation. Even those burdened with heavy negative karma can still transform their lives into something beautiful if they awaken, sincerely repent, and persevere in spiritual practice. This clearly shows that destiny is not a fixed arrangement that can never change, but something that can be transformed through wholesome thoughts and compassionate actions. If a person once lost deeply within wrongdoing like that woman could still attain liberation, then we too should never fall into despair or self-contempt. No one should believe they are too sinful or corrupted to practice the path, because the most important thing is the willingness to turn back and transform oneself. If human beings are willing to open their hearts to the Dharma, gradually transform harmful habits, and nurture goodness within, their future will certainly become different. Within the Buddha's teachings, diligent and unwavering cultivation is always emphasized, because only sincere effort can help human beings rise beyond suffering and affliction. For unwholesome thoughts that have not yet arisen within the mind, a practitioner must remain mindful and vigilant so they never have the chance to grow stronger. If harmful seeds have already appeared within consciousness, then one must practice diligently in order to gradually transform and remove them from the heart. Wholesome qualities that have not yet arisen should be carefully nurtured so they may slowly grow and take root within daily life. And once goodness has already begun to blossom within the mind, it must continue to be cultivated so those noble qualities become even stronger and more radiant. That is the path of cultivation taught by the Buddha, to help human beings free themselves from the domination of karma and the suffering of afflictions. When evil has not yet arisen, one must protect mindfulness carefully so greed, anger, and delusion cannot quietly enter the heart. If unwholesome states have already appeared, then awareness and diligent effort must be used to extinguish them before they become painful karmic consequences. Seeds of goodness not yet planted should be cultivated through kind actions, truthful speech, and thoughts filled with sincerity and purity. When wholesome qualities have already begun to flourish, they must be nourished even further, so compassion and wisdom continue expanding throughout everyday life. The more goodness is developed within the heart, the more naturally harmful habits and mental afflictions begin to fade away. This is much like a carefully tended garden filled with flowers and fruitful trees, where weeds gradually lose the opportunity to overtake the land. In contrast, if people become lazy and refuse to cultivate goodness, the garden of the soul will slowly become abandoned and overrun by affliction and craving. When weeds fill a garden, snakes and harmful insects also begin to thrive, just as endless suffering appears when the heart becomes crowded with negativity and evil. For this reason, those who walk the spiritual path must diligently create wholesome karma, so unwholesome tendencies may gradually weaken and disappear. If people continue feeding harmful habits and allow the mind to wander endlessly through desire, suffering and affliction will only become heavier and more deeply rooted. The Buddha always taught sentient beings that only by striving to overcome themselves can they truly transform the karma shaping their present lives. Only when karma is transformed through mindfulness and diligent practice can human beings hope to discover lasting peace and happiness within their existence. Within the Dhammapada, the Buddha once taught that human beings themselves create evil and then allow their own minds to become polluted and filled with suffering. Likewise, if one avoids wrongdoing and chooses to live with kindness and compassion, one also purifies and illuminates one's own heart. The purity or impurity of the soul depends entirely upon the actions and choices made by each individual human being. No one else can purify our inner world on our behalf if we ourselves are unwilling to sincerely transform and correct our own lives. The Buddha does not hand enlightenment or purity to anyone, but simply points out the correct path so sentient beings may walk it themselves. For this reason, the Buddha is honored as the great teacher who guides humanity beyond the darkness of ignorance and suffering. He is like a skilled physician, offering humanity the medicine capable of healing the sicknesses of both body and mind. Yet, if the sick person refuses to take the medicine, the illness will remain, just as suffering continues when people refuse to practice and transform themselves. True purity never comes from pleading to outside forces, but must be built through one's own conscious effort and inner transformation. The Buddha only brings faith and the light of wisdom so human beings may gain the strength to walk the path of goodness. When the human heart turns toward kindness, one's actions also become gentle and naturally bring benefit to countless people nearby. In contrast, when the mind is filled with hatred and selfishness, words and actions easily create wounds and suffering for others. For this reason, within Buddhist teachings, the mind is regarded as the root from which all wholesome and unwholesome karma arises. If one wishes to transform destiny and karmic force, one must first transform the inner heart rather than merely changing external circumstances. When anger arises within the mind, simply praying for the Buddhas to remove that anger will never bring true transformation. Because anger originates from one's own consciousness, only the individual themselves possesses the power to genuinely transform it. Those who study the Dharma should constantly remember the Buddha's teaching that hatred is the source of immense suffering and heavy karmic consequences. If one continually remembers this truth and learns to observe the movements of the inner mind, anger will gradually settle and the heart will become more peaceful. True serenity does not arise from external supplication, but from the mindful process of transforming oneself from within. Buddhism is an extraordinarily practical path because every teaching can be directly experienced and verified within daily life itself. Those who practice the path do not need to wait until another lifetime to see results, because even in the present moment, they can already feel transformation arising within their own hearts. When one sincerely practices the Buddha's teachings, life gradually becomes lighter, freer from affliction, and filled with deeper and more enduring peace. True spiritual cultivation means using wisdom to deeply understand the value of the Dharma rather than believing blindly through emotion alone. The more profoundly a person understands the wondrous teachings of the Buddha, the more precious and worthy of reverence the Dharma becomes within their heart. True faith in Buddhism is always built upon the foundation of wisdom and direct experience within everyday life. If human beings truly wish to transform their minds, they must diligently study the true Dharma and apply it through every daily action. Long ago, there was a Brahmin who practiced a ritual of sacred water, believing that water itself could wash away all the sins he had committed. Every morning and evening, he would go down to the river to bathe, hoping that all his wrongdoings would be carried away by the flowing water. Seeing that the man still possessed wholesome roots, the Buddha came to guide him and reveal the path toward true inner purity. The Buddha gently asked the Brahmin what his true purpose was in bathing in the river day after day. The man honestly replied that he believed water had the power to cleanse away the sins and impurities he had created in life. He thought that if he committed wrong actions during the day, then bathing in the river that evening would wash away those impurities completely. And if he accidentally created mistakes during the night, he would return to the water the following morning to purify himself once again. Hearing this, the Buddha offered a profound teaching to help him understand what genuine purity truly means. The Buddha explained that the true Dharma itself is the pure stream capable of washing away the defilements hidden within the human heart. Moral discipline and a virtuous way of living are the real waters that cleanse the body and mind from greed, anger, delusion, and suffering. Those who preserve moral conduct and live according to the true Dharma are bathing constantly within the pure waters of wisdom, no matter where they are. For Buddhist practitioners, moral discipline is the bridge carrying human beings across the river of sin and suffering in worldly life. When people sincerely take refuge in the wondrous teachings of the Buddha, the impurities of the heart gradually transform into clarity and inner purity. It is not external water that can cleanse karmic burdens, but mindfulness and spiritual cultivation that truly help human beings transform themselves. Those who rely upon the Dharma and practice diligently will gradually wash away the impurities within the mind and move toward the shore of liberation and peace. Anyone who lives according to the true Dharma and uses the waters of the teaching to refresh the soul will find their inner world becoming increasingly pure and radiant. When the mind is cleansed of greed, hatred, and delusion, human beings slowly rise beyond the ocean of affliction and move closer toward genuine liberation. Those who deeply understand cause and effect no longer dare commit harmful actions, because they know every deed inevitably brings its corresponding result. If one wishes to attain lasting happiness, one must plant wholesome causes through righteous thoughts and actions filled with compassion and love. That is the fair and unchanging law of cause and effect the Buddha revealed, so human beings could illuminate their own lives through wisdom. Those who do not understand the Dharma often respond to hardship by blaming heaven, fate, or the suffering circumstances surrounding them. In contrast, those who understand karma calmly view every difficulty as the result of karmic causes they themselves created long ago in the past. They realize that today's suffering is not accidental, but a karmic debt that must be repaid completely before the heart can move forward in peace. This is much like someone who once borrowed a debt and must eventually return it fully to the rightful owner. If one resists or complains while repaying that debt, the burden only becomes heavier and suffering continues without end. For this reason, practitioners of the Dharma understand that when karmic consequences arise, the most important thing is to endure patiently and transform them through goodness. When people understand that these conditions are karmic results returning from previous lives, they no longer cling so strongly to resentment or hatred toward others. While repaying old karma, if one continues creating wholesome karma through kindness and virtue, blessings gradually increase, while negative karma slowly fades away. Long ago, there was a renowned high monk from China who traveled a great distance to India in search of the authentic teachings of the Buddha. Upon arriving at the famous Nalanda University, he met a venerable master whose virtue and profound wisdom earned the respect of everyone around him. At that time, the venerable teacher was already more than 100 years old, his body weak with age, yet his wisdom and spiritual virtue still shone like a lamp within the darkness of ignorance. After their very first meeting, the young monk felt deeply moved when he suddenly saw the elderly master begin shedding tears filled with emotion. Everyone nearby was astonished and respectfully asked why such a highly revered spiritual teacher would become so deeply emotional. The venerable master slowly explained that for many years he had suffered from a painful illness, tormenting his entire body without relief. Countless medicines and remedies had been tried, Yet the illness never improved, leaving both body and mind increasingly exhausted and filled with suffering. At moments of overwhelming despair, he had even wanted to abandon everything and considered ending his own life simply to escape the endless pain. But one night, while lying weak and exhausted in a half-conscious state, he suddenly saw 3 bodhisattvas appear before him with majestic and radiant presence. One was Maitreya, filled with boundless joy and loving kindness, while another was Avalokiteshvara, embodying infinite compassion that rescues beings from suffering. The remaining figure was Manjushri, symbolizing the wondrous light of wisdom, illuminating the path for all sentient beings. The bodhisattvas advised that although the human body is impermanent and fragile, one should never develop hatred toward it or seek to destroy it. This physical body is like a raft, helping human beings cross the river of birth and death, and therefore it should be treasured and used wisely for spiritual cultivation. If a person drowning within dangerous waters finds a floating piece of wood, they should cling to it in order to reach the shore rather than destroy it. Human beings are the same. For although this body is impermanent, it still remains a precious vehicle for cultivation and the transformation of karma within life. One should not cling excessively to the body, because it will inevitably age and become ill with time. Yet one must also never despise or harm it. The Bodhisattvas further revealed that the reason the Venerable Master suffered such painful illness was due to karma from taking lives in many previous lifetimes. In a distant past life, he had once been a military general, leading armies into battle and causing immeasurable suffering to countless beings. Those karmic causes still remained unresolved until the present, and the painful illness he endured was the remaining consequence of those past actions. Ordinarily, such heavy karma would have led him into even greater suffering and downfall. Yet because he cultivated sincerely in this life, the karmic result had already been greatly reduced. Instead of enduring an immense karmic punishment, the negative karma now manifested only as physical pain, like invisible arrows quietly piercing the flesh. That is the wondrous power of true spiritual cultivation, which can transform heavy karma into lighter consequences and lessen human suffering. The Bodhisattvas also instructed him to continue spreading the true Dharma and wholeheartedly guide a monk from the East who would later travel there seeking the path. By helping that monk receive the teachings and spread the wisdom of the Buddha, the remaining karmic obstacles would gradually dissolve as well. Now, upon finally meeting the great monk from China exactly as foretold in the vision years before, the Venerable Master was deeply moved, because he knew the destined moment had arrived. That story shows that those who truly understand karma and cause and effect learn to endure patiently while diligently cultivating themselves in order to gradually eliminate karmic obstacles. Practitioners of Buddhism understand that everything occurring in life unfolds according to karmic causes and conditions, rather than appearing by mere accident. Nothing naturally comes to human beings unless causes and karmic conditions were previously planted through countless lifetimes before. Bodhidharma once taught that when practitioners encounter suffering, they must learn to turn inward and deeply contemplate themselves. He taught that through immeasurable lifetimes, human beings have abandoned their pure, true nature in order to chase endlessly after illusions and worldly desires. Because sentient beings constantly pursue craving and attachment, they continue wandering helplessly through the painful realms of samsaric existence. Throughout countless previous lifetimes, human beings have repeatedly created resentment, anger, and harmful actions toward others without even realizing it.
There are many deeds we no longer remember today. Yet once karmic seeds have been planted, their consequences will still manifest when conditions become sufficient. When suffering appears, one must understand that it is merely the fruit of seeds planted in the past, now ripening naturally, rather than punishment imposed by anyone else. No divine being sends suffering upon humanity, because all pain and hardship arise from the karmic forces created by one's own actions. Understanding this truth, practitioners willingly accept and repay karma with calmness, rather than endlessly blaming life or resenting fate. Wise people, when facing suffering, do not merely lament their destiny, but always seek to understand the deeper causes behind their present circumstances. If one encounters hardships and obstacles while walking the spiritual path, one should remember the law of cause and effect even more deeply in order to preserve inner peace. Human beings are living within the vast ocean of birth, death, and rebirth, and therefore cannot completely avoid facing the consequences of past karma. Not every action we created in countless previous lives was wholesome, because there were times when ignorance led us to harm others unknowingly. The resentments and sufferings appearing today may, in fact, be the consequences of harmful actions committed long ago in distant lives. When karmic consequences finally arrive, one should understand that they are simply the repayment of karmic debts rather than meaningless disasters descending without cause. For this reason, practitioners of Buddhism must learn patience, cultivate kindness, and diligently transform karma through hearts filled with compassion and joyful acceptance. Only when resentment is transformed into serenity and suffering is faced with wisdom can human beings gradually free themselves from the chains of karmic bondage. The Buddha taught that the law of cause and effect operates continuously through the three periods of time past, present, and future, without ever failing. Everything human beings experience today is deeply connected to causes and conditions planted throughout many previous lives. If harmful deeds were committed in the past, then when the proper conditions arise, painful consequences will naturally appear and must be accepted as part of universal fairness. Understanding this truth, practitioners no longer resent life, but instead learn acceptance, while diligently transforming themselves through wholesome karma in the present. While repaying old karma and simultaneously planting wholesome seeds, the future gradually changes toward greater brightness, peace, and happiness. This is much like planting fruit trees, where some trees quickly bear sweet fruit, while others require many years before producing their harvest. Karma works in the same way. For some consequences appear quickly, within this very lifetime, while others require long periods before finally ripening. When human beings deeply understand the profound law of cause and effect, their faith in the wondrous teachings of the Buddha becomes far more genuine and unshakable. Those who truly understand the Dharma recognize adversity as the result of negative causes once planted by themselves, and therefore no longer drown in grief or resentment. Instead of blaming fate, they quickly begin planting wholesome actions so they may gradually transform suffering and build a more beautiful and peaceful life. The Buddha once taught that blessings and spiritual merit possess the power to lighten heavy karma when people sincerely live with goodness and righteousness. Long ago, there was a young novice monk whose enlightened master foretold that only a few days remained before his life in this world would come to an end. Because the master clearly understood the karmic causes of past and future, he allowed the novice to return home and visit his parents during the final days of his life. While traveling back to his village, the young novice passed by a stream and saw a colony of tiny ants struggling helplessly within the rushing current. Those fragile little lives were being swept away by the water in utter despair, and compassion immediately arose within his heart as he wished to save them. Without hesitation, he broke off a dry branch and gently placed it into the stream so the ants could cling to it and safely crawl back to shore. After rescuing the ants, the novice continued home to visit his parents and remained there for several extra days because of the deep love within the family. When he finally returned to the temple, many days had already passed beyond the time his master had predicted he would die. The master was greatly astonished because, according to the karmic conditions he had previously perceived, the novice should not have survived beyond that appointed time. After reflecting carefully, the master asked whether the novice had performed any particularly wholesome deed during his journey home. At first, the novice could remember nothing important, but suddenly he recalled how he had saved the ants from the rushing stream several days earlier. After hearing the story, the master smiled gently and explained that the compassion shown in saving those tiny creatures had transformed the novice's karma. The merit created through preserving those small lives had extended his lifespan and altered the karmic result of an early death that had once been approaching. That story reveals the wondrous fairness of the law of cause and effect. For whenever wholesome karma is created, even destiny itself can gradually change. Those who deeply understand karma no longer become overly dependent on fortune-telling or superstition, but instead focus wholeheartedly on cultivation and the creation of merit. Since all karmic force is created by human beings themselves, human beings also possess the ability to transform it through compassionate and wholesome intentions. When people understand this truth, they no longer blame circumstances or resent others whenever hardships arise within life. The law of cause and effect helps human beings reclaim mastery over their own lives and trust that the future can be changed through present actions. The Buddha taught that all sentient beings possess luminous Buddha nature hidden deeply within consciousness, and no one is born entirely evil or corrupt. Even someone who has committed many mistakes or fallen into the life of a thief still carries wholesome seeds hidden deep within the heart. No one truly wishes to become a bad person, because even they understand that evil actions inevitably bring suffering and unrest. Yet, because ignorance and karmic force cloud the mind, human beings often lose the ability to fully govern themselves. Even so, within the deepest part of every person, there always remains a light of goodness, quietly waiting to be awakened and revealed. If one learns to turn inward, illuminate the heart, and nourish goodness sincerely, harmful habits and negative tendencies will gradually transform over time. That is the true meaning of spiritual cultivation,
which is the process of transforming what is harmful into goodness and guiding a deluded mind back toward awakening. Every human being carries within themselves precious, wholesome roots, capable of blossoming into wisdom and compassion when cared for properly. The Buddhas themselves also arose from ordinary sentient beings who awakened and attained enlightenment, rather than being born as exalted beings from the very beginning. They were simply those who recognized the light of true nature earlier and then guided countless others along the same path toward awakening. For this reason, the Buddha always encouraged people to trust in their own potential for enlightenment and persevere diligently without retreating. Trungpa Tong, after realizing profound spiritual truths, also left behind a famous teaching about living the Dharma amidst ordinary life. He taught that one should live naturally according to causes and conditions, eating when hungry and resting when tired, while maintaining a peaceful and unattached heart. Amid the endless changes and turbulence of worldly life, those who practice the path can still preserve serenity if they know how to return to their own awakened mind. He also reminded humanity that the greatest treasure does not lie in gold, jewels, or worldly possessions, but exists within the consciousness of every individual. That treasure is the pure Buddha nature, eternally present within all sentient beings, without exception. When human beings awaken and live through genuine wisdom, that inner treasure gradually reveals itself and shines with wondrous brilliance. Buddhism does not urge people to endlessly chase happiness outside themselves, but instead teaches them to return inward and discover the profound value hidden within the heart. If one learns to develop that inner light of awakening, harmful habits and attachments can gradually be transformed, and the person slowly becomes wise and virtuous. In contrast, if greed, hatred, and delusion continue covering the heart, then the precious treasure within consciousness remains buried, while life continues, drowning in suffering. For this reason, practitioners of Buddhism must maintain unwavering faith in their own ability to transform and awaken themselves. The treasure of wisdom and compassion grows more inexhaustible the more deeply it is uncovered, unlike worldly wealth, which eventually fades away. The Buddha clearly revealed the path and offered the medicine capable of healing suffering for all beings more than thousands of years ago. The remaining task is for each individual to personally practice the Dharma and walk with their own feet upon the path toward enlightenment. No one can cultivate the path in our place, just as no one else can take medicine on our behalf to heal the illnesses hidden within consciousness. Only through personal effort and diligent transformation can human beings quickly return to the peace and clarity that have always existed within their true nature. May all people learn to nurture and develop wholesome hearts, so they may walk steadily upon the meaningful path of studying and practicing the Buddha's teachings. When each person learns to live with kindness and inner peace, that wholesome energy naturally spreads outward to everyone around them. From that point onward, more and more people begin to experience the practical and wondrous value of the Dharma within ordinary daily life. Guided by the illuminating light of the Buddha's teachings, human beings gradually transform suffering and build lives filled with peace amidst this ever-changing world. When people live according to the true Dharma and plant wholesome karma each day, their spiritual merit and blessings steadily continue to grow deeper and stronger. That is also the quiet way each individual contributes to spreading the Buddha's light of compassion and wisdom throughout countless places in the world.
True Buddhism is indeed the path that guides disciples beyond delusion and toward the radiant light of awakening and genuine peace. From immeasurable lifetimes until now, human beings have always carried within themselves a deep form of delusion, whose true origin very few ever recognize. It is the ancient delusion passed from one lifetime to another, causing sentient beings to drift endlessly within the cycle of birth and death. Although beings pass through countless different existences, this delusion silently remains within consciousness and has never truly disappeared. Every person born into this world carries that same delusion, which is why it is called the inherited delusion of many lifetimes. The deepest root of that delusion is attachment to the self, the belief that there exists a permanent and truly independent I. As long as human beings continue clinging to that sense of self, they will remain swept along within the endless ocean of samsaric suffering. If a person completely releases attachment to the self, then that person has already transcended the painful cycle of rebirth within the world. Within the teaching of the 12 dependent originations, the Buddha explained that ignorance is the root cause keeping sentient beings trapped in birth and death. Ignorance is the state of delusion in which human beings forget the pure, true nature that has always existed within them since beginningless time. Because of a single moment of unconscious delusion, people lose the light of awakening and begin wandering endlessly through the cycle of rebirth. From that moment onward, delusion becomes a silent companion, guiding sentient beings from one lifetime into another without rest. Human beings gradually begin viewing the ego as the true master of life, and from there, countless ambitions, attachments, and afflictions arise. If we observe deeply into present life, we will see that most people are living almost entirely centered around their own sense of self. Some believe they are living for family, career, or many noble purposes within this lifetime. Yet if one contemplates more carefully, it becomes clear that behind nearly every thought and action still hides the shadow of attachment to the self. From the moment people begin speaking until every joy and sorrow within life, almost everything revolves around the word I. People constantly say, I eat, I dress, I work, I succeed, or I suffer, rarely recognizing how deeply bound they are by that attachment. From this attachment to self arise endless competition, resentment, ambition, and calculation throughout human life. Most of the suffering and afflictions within the world originate from an excessively strong attachment to the personal ego. Within the scriptures, there is a story about Pasenadi and Queen Malika discussing the nature of love within human life. One day, the king asked the queen whom she loved most among all the people in the world. The queen smiled gently and replied that naturally the person she loved most was herself before anyone else. Afterward, she softly asked the king whom he loved most within his own life. The king immediately answered
that the person he loved most was the Queen herself, and no one else could compare to her. Hearing this, the Queen respectfully replied that, if permitted, she wished to express a deeper truth beyond that answer. Although somewhat surprised, the king still agreed and allowed her to continue sharing her thoughts. The Queen calmly explained that in truth, every human being loves themselves more than anyone else in the world. She explained that because she desired happiness and peace for herself, she naturally wished for the king's love and protection. Precisely because people love themselves, they seek care, understanding, shelter, and happiness from others around them. The Queen further said that if she were to love another man, the king would surely become angry and unable to accept it. That clearly showed that everyone views their own ego as the most important thing and always wishes to protect it first. Upon hearing those words, King Pasenadi suddenly awakened to a profound truth hidden within the psychology of human beings. Afterward, both the king and queen went together to meet the Buddha and recount their conversation so they could receive further guidance from him. The Buddha confirmed that the queen's words accurately reflected the common psychological nature existing within all sentient beings. He taught that although the human mind may wander throughout every direction, no one remains closer to oneself than one's own ego, because every person cherishes their own self so deeply. Practitioners of the Dharma must learn to respect the dignity and emotions of others as well. If we ourselves do not wish to be hurt, then we should never inflict wounds upon the hearts or self-respect of anyone else. That is the compassionate and deeply balanced philosophy of life the Buddha wished humanity to apply within all relationships throughout life. Today, human beings often focus only on protecting their own ego, while unknowingly trampling upon the feelings and silent pain of others around them. It is precisely this selfish attachment to the self that fills life with conflict, resentment, and endless suffering. If people learned to live according to the Buddha's teachings and respected the self-worth of others just as they value their own, life would become far gentler and more peaceful. When human beings learn to place themselves in another person's position, true understanding and genuine love finally have the opportunity to blossom. In contrast, if one constantly views oneself as the center of everything while diminishing the value of others, true harmony and closeness can never truly exist. The Buddha taught that understanding the nature of the ego is not meant to strengthen it, but rather to help human beings rise beyond the bondage of self-attachment. A truly wise person knows how to love themselves properly by living with kindness and refusing to create suffering for others. When people understand that everyone carries pain, dignity, and the longing to be loved, they naturally begin treating one another with greater compassion and tolerance. That is the profound spirit of compassion and wisdom that Buddhism brings into this world so deeply clouded by ignorance and attachment. True Buddhism is indeed the path guiding disciples beyond delusion and leading them back toward the light of awakening and genuine peace. From immeasurable lifetimes until now, human beings have always carried within themselves a deep, hidden delusion whose true origin very few ever recognize. It is the inherited delusion passed from one lifetime to another, causing sentient beings to endlessly wander within the cycle of birth and death. Although beings pass through countless different lifetimes, this delusion silently remains within consciousness and has never truly disappeared. Every person born into this world carries this same delusion, which is why it is known as the inherited delusion of countless lifetimes. The deepest root of this delusion is attachment to the self, the belief that there exists a permanent and enduring I. As long as people continue clinging to this sense of self, they will remain swept endlessly through the vast ocean of samsaric suffering. If a person completely releases attachment to the ego, that person has already transcended the painful cycle of worldly rebirth. Within the teaching of the 12 dependent originations, the Buddha explained that ignorance is the root cause keeping beings trapped within birth and death. Ignorance is the deluded state in which people forget the pure, true nature that has existed within them since beginningless time. Because of a single unconscious thought arising, human beings lose the light of awakening and begin wandering through the endless cycle of rebirth. From that moment onward, delusion becomes a silent companion, guiding sentient beings from one lifetime into another without rest. Human beings gradually begin seeing the ego as the true master of life, and from there, countless ambitions, cravings, and afflictions are born. If we look deeply into present life, we can clearly see that most people are living almost entirely centered around themselves. Some believe they live for family, career, or many noble purposes within this life. Yet, if one contemplates more deeply, it becomes clear that behind nearly every thought and action still lingers the shadow of attachment to the self. From the moment people begin speaking until every joy and sorrow within life, nearly everything revolves around the word I. People constantly say, I eat, I dress, I work, I succeed, or I suffer, rarely recognizing the invisible bondage hidden within those words. From this attachment to self arise endless competition, anger, ambition, and calculation throughout human existence. Most afflictions and suffering within the world originate from an excessively strong attachment to one's own ego. Within the Buddhist scriptures, there is a story about Pasenadi and Queen Malika discussing the nature of love within human life. One day, the king asked the queen whom she loved most among all the people in the world. The queen smiled gently and replied that naturally, the person she loved most was herself before anyone else. Afterward, she softly asked the king whom he loved most within his own life. The king immediately answered that the person he loved most was the queen, and no one else could compare to her. Hearing this, the queen respectfully replied that, if permitted, she wished to express a deeper truth beyond that answer. Although somewhat surprised, the king still agreed and allowed her to continue sharing her thoughts. The queen calmly explained that, in truth, every person in this world loves themselves more than anyone else. She explained that Because she desired happiness and peace for herself, she naturally wished for the king's love and care. Precisely because human beings love themselves, they seek protection, attention, and happiness from others around them. The queen further explained that if she were to love another man, the king would surely become angry and unable to accept it. That clearly proved that everyone views their own ego as most important and always wishes to protect it first. Upon hearing those words, King Pasenadi suddenly awakened to a profound truth hidden within the psychology of human beings. Afterward, both the king and queen went together to meet the Buddha and recount their conversation so they could receive further guidance from him. The Buddha confirmed that the queen's words accurately reflected the common psychological nature existing within all sentient beings. The Buddha taught that although the human mind may wander throughout every direction, no one remains closer to oneself than one's own ego. Because everyone deeply cherishes their own sense of self, those who follow the spiritual path must learn to respect the dignity and emotions of others as they would their own. If we ourselves do not wish to be wounded, then we should never inflict pain upon the hearts or self-respect of anyone else. That is the compassionate and deeply balanced philosophy of life the Buddha wished humanity to apply within all relationships throughout existence. Today, human beings often focus only on protecting their own ego, while unknowingly trampling upon the feelings and silent suffering of others. It is precisely this selfish attachment to the self that fills life with conflict, resentment, and endless sorrow. If people learned to live according to the Buddha's teachings and respected the self-worth of others just as they value their own, life would become far gentler and more peaceful. When human beings learn to place themselves in another person's position, true understanding and genuine love finally have the opportunity to blossom. In contrast, if one constantly sees oneself as the center of everything while diminishing the value of others, true harmony and closeness can never truly exist. The Buddha taught that understanding the nature of the ego is not meant to strengthen it, but rather to help human beings rise beyond the bondage of self-attachment. A truly wise person knows how to love themselves properly by living with kindness and refusing to create suffering for others. When people understand that everyone carries pain, dignity, and the longing to be loved, they naturally begin treating one another with greater compassion and tolerance. That is the profound spirit of compassion and wisdom that Buddhism brings into this world so deeply clouded by ignorance and attachment. True Buddhism is indeed the path guiding disciples beyond delusion and leading them back toward the light of awakening and genuine peace. From immeasurable lifetimes until now, human beings have always carried within themselves a deep, hidden delusion, whose true origin very few ever recognize. It is the inherited delusion, passed from one lifetime to another, causing sentient beings to endlessly wander within the cycle of birth, and death. Although beings pass through countless different lifetimes, this delusion silently remains within consciousness and has never truly disappeared. Every person born into this world carries this same delusion, which is why it is known as the inherited delusion of countless lifetimes. The deepest root of this delusion is attachment to the self, the belief that there exists a permanent and enduring I. As long as people continue clinging to this sense of self, they will remain swept endlessly through the vast ocean of samsaric suffering. If a person completely releases attachment to the ego, that person has already transcended the painful cycle of worldly rebirth. Within the teaching of the 12 dependent originations, the Buddha explained that ignorance is the root cause keeping beings trapped within birth and death. Ignorance is the deluded state in which people forget the pure, true nature that has existed within them since beginningless time. Because of a single unconscious thought arising, human beings lose the light of awakening and begin wandering through the endless cycle of rebirth. From that moment onward, delusion becomes a silent companion, guiding sentient beings from one lifetime into another without rest. Human beings gradually begin seeing the ego as the true master of life, and from there, countless ambitions, cravings, and afflictions are born. If we look deeply into present life, we can clearly see that most people are living almost entirely centered around themselves. Some believe they live for family, career, or many noble purposes within this life. Yet if one contemplates more deeply, it becomes clear that behind nearly every thought and action still lingers the shadow of attachment to the self. From the moment people begin speaking until every joy and sorrow within life, nearly everything revolves around the word I. People constantly say, I eat, I dress, I work, I succeed, or I suffer, rarely recognizing the invisible bondage hidden within those words. From this attachment to self arise endless competition, anger, ambition, and calculation throughout human existence. Most afflictions and suffering within the world originate from an excessively strong attachment to one's own ego. Within the Buddhist scriptures, there is a story about Pasenadi and Queen Malika discussing the nature of love within human life. One day, the king asked the queen whom she loved most among all the people in the world. The queen smiled gently and replied that naturally the person she loved most was herself before anyone else. Afterward, she softly asked the king whom he loved most within his own life. The king immediately answered that the person he loved most was the queen, and no one else could compare to her. Hearing this, the queen respectfully replied that if permitted, she wished to express a deeper truth beyond that answer. Although somewhat surprised, the king still agreed and allowed her to continue sharing her thoughts. The queen calmly explained that in truth, every person in this world loves themselves more than anyone else. She explained that because she desired happiness and peace for herself, She naturally wished for the king's love and care. Precisely because human beings love themselves, they seek protection, attention, and happiness from others around them. The queen further explained that if she were to love another man, the king would surely become angry and unable to accept it. That clearly proves that everyone views their own ego as most important and always wishes to protect it before anything else. Upon hearing those words, Pasenadi suddenly awakened and recognized a profound truth hidden deep within human psychology. Afterward, both the king and queen went together to meet the Buddha and recount their conversation, so they could receive further guidance from him. The Buddha confirmed that the queen's words accurately reflected the common psychological nature existing within all sentient beings. He taught that although the human mind may wander throughout every direction, no one remains closer to oneself than one's own ego. Because everyone deeply cherishes their own sense of self, those who follow the spiritual path must learn to respect the dignity and emotions of others as they would their own. If we ourselves do not wish to be wounded, then we should never inflict pain upon the hearts or self-respect of anyone else. That is the compassionate and deeply balanced philosophy of life the Buddha wished humanity to apply within all relationships throughout existence. Today, human beings often focus only on protecting their own ego, while unknowingly trampling upon the feelings and silent suffering of others. It is precisely this selfish attachment to the self that fills life with conflict, resentment, and endless sorrow. If people learned to live according to the Buddha's teachings and respected the self-worth of others just as they value their own, life would become far gentler and more peaceful. When human beings learn to place themselves in another person's position, true understanding and genuine love finally have the opportunity to blossom. In contrast, if one constantly sees oneself as the center of everything while diminishing the value of others, true harmony and closeness can never truly exist. The Buddha taught that understanding the nature of the ego is not meant to strengthen it, but rather to help human beings rise beyond the bondage of self-attachment. A truly wise person knows how to love themselves properly by living with kindness and refusing to create suffering for others. When people understand that everyone carries pain, dignity, and the longing to be loved, they naturally begin treating one another with greater compassion and tolerance. That is the profound spirit of compassion and wisdom that Buddhism brings into this world, so deeply clouded by ignorance and attachment. Some people fear that when they dedicate their spiritual merit to all sentient beings, their blessings and merit will become divided and diminished. They believe that if their merit is shared with countless beings, then they and their families will no longer receive its complete benefit. Because their hearts still cling to selfishness and attachment, they only wish to chant sutras or perform good deeds for themselves and their loved ones alone. Hearing this, a Zen master felt deep compassion and gently explained the profound meaning of dedication and transference of merit within Buddhism. He taught that dedicating merit to all sentient beings is a way of expanding compassion so that all beings may share in peace and benefit. It is a wondrous method of cultivation that helps human beings break free from narrow selfishness and move closer toward the vast heart of the Buddhas. Dedication of merit does not diminish goodness, but instead directs wholesome actions toward a more noble and boundless purpose. A person who knows how to dedicate merit understands how to use their small goodness to plant wholesome conditions throughout the world. The Zen master explained that dedication carries many profound meanings, such as directing one's spiritual cultivation toward truth and guiding wholesome causes toward the fruit of enlightenment. It is also the gradual transformation from a narrow heart into a boundless heart, from limited perception into immeasurable wisdom. He compared it to the sunlight, which does not shine for only one person, but illuminates all beings equally, without discrimination. A tiny seed, when planted properly, can still produce countless flowers and sweet fruits that nourish the world. Merit is like a lamp whose flame can light thousands of other candles, while the original flame itself never grows weaker. On the contrary, when light spreads everywhere, darkness is pushed farther away, and the world becomes even more radiant than before. Those who dedicate merit to all sentient beings are like people spreading the light of wisdom and loving kindness throughout every corner of life. When countless people awaken wholesome intentions and dedicate blessings to one another, the world receives immeasurable peace and profound happiness. For this reason, practitioners of Buddhism must nurture equal compassion toward all beings rather than clinging to narrow feelings of preference and hatred. Although the Zen master's explanation was deeply reasonable and profound, the farmer still could not completely release his attachment and prejudice. He then admitted that although the teaching was beautiful, he wished to exclude one neighbor whom he deeply hated from receiving his dedication of merit. He explained that this neighbor had treated him terribly, and therefore he simply could not bring himself to dedicate merit to such a person. The Zen master then asked sternly that if one truly wished to dedicate merit to all beings, why was there still such discrimination hidden within the heart? Through that story, we can clearly see how attachment to the ego causes human compassion to become greatly limited and narrow. Even when performing good deeds, if one still clings to discrimination and attachment, then the merit created remains limited and cannot become vast or complete. A sincere practitioner must contemplate deeply in order to expand the heart and live according to the spirit of selflessness taught within Buddhism. Within the monasteries, there is also a story about a nun who possessed a Buddha statue that she deeply cherished and revered. Every single day, she carefully cleaned the statue, offered incense and pure water, and cared for it with all the sincerity and devotion of her heart. Later, when she moved to another temple, she also carried the Buddha statue with her, because she could not bear to part from such a precious spiritual treasure. The new temple contained many Buddha statues enshrined upon a great altar filled with fragrant incense and an atmosphere of solemn serenity and peace. Whenever she lit incense to offer before the Buddhas,
The nun worried that the fragrant smoke might drift toward the other statues and prevent her own Buddha statue from receiving the full offering. Because of this attachment, she devised a way to reserve the fragrance only for the Buddha statue she cherished most deeply. She created a funnel with a wide opening to gather the incense smoke and directed the narrow end straight toward the nose of her beloved Buddha statue. She believed that by doing so, the statue would receive all the fragrant incense without having to share it with the other statues nearby. As time slowly passed, the incense smoke accumulated day after day until the nose of the statue gradually turned black and discolored. What had once been a radiant and dignified Buddha statue eventually became a statue with a blackened nose that seemed strange to everyone who looked upon it.
Through this story, we can see that although the nun began with reverence and sincere intentions, the selfish attachment hidden within her heart prevented the outcome from remaining beautiful and complete. The spirit of offering itself was wholesome and noble, yet once it became narrowed into the thought that this Buddha belonged only to her, the merit also became limited and small. The image of the Buddha should have remained forever pure and radiant, yet it gradually lost its dignity because of discrimination and attachment. In truth, all Buddhas are equal without distinction, and there is no separation such as my Buddha or someone else's Buddha. It was precisely this narrow attachment to the self that caused the original goodness to slowly transform into an outcome far from what was intended. From the story of the black-nosed Buddha statue, we can easily reflect upon our own behavior within everyday life. Many people often say, "This is my temple, my teacher, my spiritual community, or my disciples," while carrying deep attachment within their hearts. Those possessive thoughts gradually cause people to fall into resentment, comparison, jealousy, and even conflict with one another. At the beginning, everything may have originated from good intentions. Yet, once the ego enters, the final result often becomes painful and regrettable. There are many situations that begin with wholesome causes, but because attachment to the self becomes too strong, the resulting consequences are no longer beautiful. For this reason, within Buddhist teachings, the ego is always regarded as one of the deepest roots of suffering and affliction within the world. A renowned Zen master once wrote that the very moment the idea of I appears, suffering immediately begins arising alongside it. If practitioners truly grasp that important principle, they will gradually begin understanding the profound essence of what the Buddha wished to teach all beings. Only when people deeply understand the teaching of non-self can they genuinely experience the immense benefit Buddhism brings to spiritual life. To be born as a human being and encounter the true Dharma is an extraordinarily precious karmic blessing that not everyone is fortunate enough to receive. If one fails to treasure that opportunity and cultivate correctly, then even many good deeds may still fail to produce completely wholesome results. The true path of studying Buddhism is the gradual journey of passing through the gate of non-self in order to dissolve attachment within the heart. At first, practitioners may only understand the teachings superficially, yet, through perseverance,
they slowly enter more deeply into the wisdom of awakening. If one cannot overcome attachment to the ego, then even after many years of studying Buddhism, it is still very easy to wander away from the true path of liberation. No matter how profound or wondrous the path of enlightenment may be, if one has not passed through the gate of non-self, one has not yet fully followed the Buddha's true spirit. If the more one practices, the larger the ego becomes, and the more one desires praise, recognition, and superiority over others, then this is an extremely dangerous sign upon the spiritual path. There are people who study Buddhism for many years, yet their ego only grows larger, until spiritual practice itself becomes a means of nourishing pride and arrogance. For this reason, practitioners must constantly return inward to contemplate whether attachment to the self is truly becoming lighter within their hearts. The Buddha taught the practice of the 6 perfections and the cultivation of compassion precisely to expand the heart and gradually dissolve selfish attachment. When people begin thinking more about the well-being of others than about themselves, that is already the first step toward entering the gate of non-self. The practice of patience and forbearance is also a method helping human beings lower the ego and gradually release stubborn attachment and competition within life. Observing moral precepts is not merely a way to avoid negative karma, but also a means of restraining craving and the reckless impulses of the ego within consciousness. If we contemplate more deeply, we will realize that attachment to the self has been conditioned throughout immeasurable lifetimes, and therefore has become an extremely difficult habit to abandon. Sometimes people clearly understand that attachment is delusion. Yet, because habitual tendencies are so deeply rooted, they continue clinging tightly without release. Even so, the Buddha taught that any habit, if sincerely transformed with determination and awareness, will eventually begin to dissolve little by little. One should not fear that attachment to the self can never disappear, because in truth it is merely a layer of illusion accumulated over a very long time. Try observing this body carefully and deeply to realize that it is only a temporary combination of earth, water, fire, and wind, rather than a permanent self. The solid parts, such as bones, teeth, hair, and flesh, belong to the element of earth and possess no awareness or separate ego within themselves. Blood and bodily fluids belong to the element of water, functioning only according to natural conditions without any enduring self existing inside them. The warmth within the body belongs to the element of fire, while movements such as breathing and heartbeat belong to the element of wind, continuously operating without rest. These 4 elements combine temporarily to form the human body. Yet none of them independently experiences joy, sorrow, or a sense of permanent selfhood. Look deeply into every drop of blood, every strand of hair, and every bone, and you will see that none of them possesses awareness or an independent ego of its own. If the body is not the true self, then the mind itself is also impermanent.
constantly changing from moment to moment, without ever remaining fixed. One thought has barely arisen before another immediately follows after it, causing the human mind to shift and fluctuate endlessly without rest. Within a single short day, countless thoughts of joy, sorrow, love, hatred, and calculation arise and disappear continuously, like drifting clouds across the sky. If thoughts change so rapidly, then which thought could truly be the permanent self that human beings have clung to for so long? When contemplated deeply, everything appears merely as fleeting waves, briefly arising and dissolving, with no solid and eternal essence existing behind them. Even this very body changes little by little every day, making the so-called permanent ego increasingly impossible to grasp. For example, when a man returns home after work and meets his wife, at that moment he is called a husband. When he walks into another room and sees his children, he instantly becomes a father, carrying completely different responsibilities and roles. If his grandchild runs out to greet him, he immediately becomes a grandfather, and another entirely different feeling arises within his heart. When he steps into the yard and sees the family dog joyfully running toward him, he becomes its owner within that relationship. When he enters the house and sees his elderly mother, he instantly becomes a son filled with love, reverence, and filial devotion. If he hears that an old friend has come to visit and walks out to greet him, he once again becomes a close companion within another circumstance. Within only a brief period of time, countless different versions of the self appear according to surrounding conditions and relationships. If one observes an entire lifetime carefully, it becomes clear that human beings carry countless names, identities, and roles upon their shoulders. Those different selves are, in truth, only temporary labels attached according to circumstance, rather than the true essence of a human being. Yet most sentient beings cling tightly to those outer identities, and from them create endless suffering and affliction. Within the Diamond Sutra, the Buddha once taught that ordinary beings are not truly ordinary beings, and that is why they are called ordinary beings. Even concepts such as sentient beings or the ego are merely temporary names created by human thought and language. When one remains deluded, one is called an ordinary person. Yet, after awakening, those labels naturally lose all significance. This reveals that every concept regarding identity or ego is merely provisional and never an unchanging absolute truth. Anyone who truly understands this deeply will feel immeasurably lighter and no longer cling so tightly to their narrow sense of self. Nearly all of us have experienced dreams filled with joy and sorrow that seemed completely real while we were inside them. Within those dreams, there is also a self wandering here and there, experiencing happiness, sadness, and even fear while fleeing danger. Sometimes in dreams, we are chased by wild animals and run away in terror as though everything were truly happening. At other times within dreams, we discover precious treasures, and rejoice with overwhelming excitement, as though we had gained something immensely valuable. Yet very few people ever stop to ask what that self within the dream truly is, or where it actually exists. At the same time, there is also another silent awareness, quietly recognizing all those joyful and sorrowful scenes unfolding within the dream. Clearly, within a single dream, there already exist two different layers of awareness that human beings rarely notice. Our present life is very much the same, because most of the time, people only live through temporary, fabricated selves, while forgetting the silent awareness behind them. Very few are willing to turn inward deeply enough to recognize the luminous true mind silently witnessing every joy and sorrow in life. If one carefully observes both dreams and ordinary life, it becomes obvious that most human beings are living within delusion without realizing it. People constantly believe they are lacking something, and therefore endlessly chase after fame, wealth, and emotional satisfaction outside themselves. In truth, the more desires people pile into the heart, the heavier and more exhausting life gradually becomes. This is much like a traveler carrying an overly heavy bag, because the more objects added inside, the harder every step becomes. If one learns to release attachment and craving little by little, the soul naturally becomes lighter, calmer, and more peaceful within this life. The spiritual path itself is also the journey of learning how to put down the invisible burdens the ego has carried for so long. Long ago, there was a famous ascetic who often delivered teachings to large crowds with profound wisdom and extraordinary eloquence. One day, after hearing him teach, someone informed him that only a few days of life remained before his death would arrive. Upon hearing this news, the ascetic became deeply terrified, because despite understanding many teachings, he still had not overcome the fear of death within his heart. When faced with the reality of approaching death, the ascetic became overwhelmed with fear and desperately begged to be shown a path beyond birth and death. The other man could only shake his head and explain that he himself lacked the ability to help, but that the Buddha had now appeared in the world. He advised the ascetic to quickly seek out the world-honored one, because only the Buddha's enlightened teachings could guide human beings beyond the suffering of birth and death. Hearing this, the ascetic immediately used his spiritual powers to fly in search of the Buddha, with a heart filled with urgency and hope. Along the journey, he saw 2 parasol trees blooming brilliantly, their graceful beauty standing peacefully beneath the quiet sky. He immediately used his spiritual powers to break off 2 beautiful flowering branches, intending to offer them to the Buddha as a gesture of deep reverence. When he finally arrived before the world-honored one, the ascetic bowed respectfully and earnestly begged to be shown the path beyond birth and death. The Buddha simply looked at him gently and calmly, said that he should let go of everything he was holding in his hands. Hearing those words, the ascetic immediately dropped the flower branch from his left hand believing he had obeyed the Buddha's instruction. Yet the Buddha continued telling him to let go once again. So he quickly released the flower branch from his right hand as well. After dropping both branches, the ascetic assumed everything was finished. Yet the Buddha still continued telling him to let go even further. The ascetic became utterly astonished and replied that both his hands were now completely empty, so there was nothing left for him to release. At that moment, the Buddha compassionately explained that he was not asking him merely to drop the flowers outside, but to release the deeper attachments hidden within consciousness itself. The first letting go meant releasing the 6 sense faculties of eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind that constantly chase after the restless outer world. The second letting go meant releasing the 6 sense objects, namely forms, sounds, smells, tastes, and all conditions that cause the mind to become attached and craving. The third and deepest letting go was the release of the 6 consciousnesses, the endless discriminating thoughts of preference, comparison, love, and hatred arising continuously within the mind. When a person is able to let go of all 3 layers of attachment, that very moment they begin to experience liberation and inner peace within this life. Hearing the Buddha's profound teaching, the ascetic suddenly awakened because he realized that the truth had always been incredibly simple, though he had never truly understood it before. At first glance, the teaching of letting go appears extremely easy, yet when one truly practices it, one realizes how difficult it is for human beings. In truth, the difficulty does not lie in external circumstances, but in the deeply rooted habits of attachment accumulated throughout immeasurable lifetimes. For so long, human beings have mistaken those thoughts and emotions as their true selves, making it incredibly difficult to release and transcend them. If one remains mindful and recognizes them merely as passing illusions, then gradually one learns how to let go more lightly with each passing day. Many people often believe that external conditions are controlling them and causing their minds to become restless and unhappy. Yet, if we observe carefully, we will see that external objects simply remain where they are, while our own minds are the true creators of inner storms. A flower blooming quietly, or a wall standing silently outside, never intentionally creates suffering for anyone. The human mind and external objects are actually very separate and entirely unattached, unless clinging and projection arise between them. We only feel controlled by circumstances because we have attached our ego and discriminating thoughts onto those external conditions. From those judgments and imagined interpretations arise endless joys, sorrows, loves, hatreds, and afflictions throughout life. In reality, the nature of the world itself is peaceful and far less complicated than human beings usually imagine it to be. Only because attachment continuously enters to compare and divide does life become filled with contradiction and unrest. For example, a vehicle parked quietly beside the road never declares itself beautiful or ugly. Yet, when people see it, and immediately begin judging and comparing, affliction and dissatisfaction instantly arise within the mind. A flower standing peacefully within nature is simply itself and never claims to be more beautiful or inferior to anything else. One person may see the flower as beautiful in their own way, while another person experiences it differently according to their personal mood and perception. This clearly shows that beauty or ugliness does not truly exist within objects themselves, but mostly arises from the discriminating mind of human beings. In the world, people often speak of mountains as high and rivers as deep. Yet the mountains never claim themselves to be high, and rivers never call themselves deep. Those comparisons only appear when human beings place one thing beside another and begin forming judgments within the mind. Someone may think a mountain is extremely tall, but when it stands beside a much larger mountain range, it suddenly appears small and ordinary. A stick placed beside a shorter one becomes long, yet when placed beside a longer stick, it suddenly appears short. Thus, long and short, high and low, beautiful and ugly are never fixed realities, but merely results of comparison created by the human mind. Understanding this truth reveals that most suffering experienced by sentient beings originates from illusion, imagination, and attachment. Long ago, within the tale of Kyo, there was a line saying that when a person is sad, even the scenery appears stained with sorrow. Many people hear those words and believe that external circumstances themselves are the direct cause of sadness within the heart. Yet, through studying Buddhism and contemplating more deeply, one realizes that the world itself carries neither sadness nor joy within it inherently. External scenery is lifeless and unconscious, incapable of carrying suffering by itself, and only becomes sorrowful through human projection. Because the heart is already filled with sadness and anxiety, everything one sees appears lonely and filled with melancholy, reflecting one's own state of mind. Human beings live surrounded by imagination and interpretation, and therefore often blame circumstances while forgetting to examine the source within their own minds. If one fails to recognize this truth, then no matter where one travels, obstacles will continue appearing because inner unrest still remains unchanged. Many people leave one place hoping another environment will finally change their hearts, yet in the end, suffering continues to follow them without disappearing. If the inner mind has not yet been transformed, then whether one lives amid crowded cities or hides deep within the mountains, true peace still remains difficult to find. Some people complain that busy places are too noisy for the mind to remain calm. Yet, after retreating into the mountains, they still become disturbed by the cries of wild animals. That clearly shows that the true root of affliction does not lie in circumstances, but within a mind that has not yet been transformed and quieted. Long ago, there was a sage who had cultivated meditation to an extraordinarily deep level. while living alone in the silence of a remote forest. One day, while meditating beside a stream, he heard the cries of birds and the splashing of fish, causing irritation to arise and his concentration to collapse. Because his inner mind had not yet been completely transformed, even a tiny sound from the outside world was enough to disturb his meditative state. Since the sage had not fully transformed his inner consciousness, when external conditions disturbed him, he immediately gave rise to thoughts filled with anger and harmful intentions. He vowed that in his next life, he would become a fierce creature, able to fly everywhere and devour all living beings both in the water and upon the land. Because of only a single moment of unrest and lack of mindfulness, his consciousness created negative karma that dangerously diverted his spiritual path. After his death, the sage was indeed reborn as a dragon, burdened with great suffering, exactly according to the angry vow he had previously made. That story reveals that if the mind is not truly transformed, then even after many years of practice, one may still be led astray by afflictions and delusion. It is attachment to the self and ignorance that become the deepest roots, causing sentient beings to wander endlessly through the ocean of samsaric suffering. This delusion of ego clinging has followed humanity throughout immeasurable lifetimes and become an invisible chain pulling beings endlessly onward without rest. True Buddhist practice is not meant to nourish further delusion, but rather to cultivate wisdom and awakening in order to transcend ignorance and suffering. Once practitioners recognize the root of this delusion, they must patiently begin untangling and transforming their inner consciousness step by step. Even if one cannot instantly eradicate attachment to self like the enlightened sages, one should at least learn to gradually open the heart and let go a little more each day. The correct path of cultivation is the daily journey of learning to become more open-hearted, compassionate, and less selfish within one's own being. As people slowly release attachment and clinging, the soul naturally becomes lighter, calmer, and closer to genuine peace and happiness. If human beings can reduce even a portion of their attachment to self, then relationships within life also become far more harmonious and loving. When the ego is no longer excessively large, competition, resentment, anger, and inner afflictions naturally begin fading away with time. That is the practical benefit practitioners of Buddhism can directly experience here and now, without waiting for some distant future. May everyone who hears these profound teachings take the time to contemplate and observe deeply within their own hearts and minds. If one learns to skillfully apply the Dharma within daily life, the heart gradually becomes more open, gentle, and free from suffering than before. When people live together with understanding while letting go of attachment to the self, they naturally become closer, kinder, and capable of bringing greater peace and happiness to one another.